If you look in classwork for today under Monday, January 25th, you'll see that number 2 assignment is this handout. This handout includes both your notes and your classwork for today. Now, everything that we do on this assignment, you've got to write down your notebook on paper as well as fill in the blanks here. All right, so to start out with, we're going to, this is H1, so we start the third 9 weeks with the first homework assignment, H1, and notes and practices are in here. I need you to solve the quadratics by finding the square roots. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's what we're going to do today with these problems. And write all the problems in your notes. Let's start out by this first statement. Quadratic equations of the form. Now, you're going to need to type this in your laptop right now because it's going to grade. It's going to mark it wrong if you don't. And the answer there is this. It's ax squared. Okay, so we're going to write this as a square. We'll press my down arrow. Okay, and it's going to be plus c equals 0. Now, I'm going to just tell you what I mean by that. But go ahead and type that in. Write that on your notes. Ax squared plus c equals 0. So in your notes, what you want to write right now is today's date, which is January 25th, 2021. And what we're doing is we're solving quadratics using square roots. So just jot that down. Solving quadratics using square roots. Now, I asked you to type in there ax squared plus c equals 0. Now, what that actually means is this. Ordinarily, when we've looked at polynomials, it's been, something x squared plus something x plus a constant number, okay? It might be in this case that this is 4x squared, plus, let me start over. 4x squared minus 16 equals 0. It might be something that looks like that. Okay, what I'm saying is when I say ax squared plus c, there is no x without a square, okay? We might have seen a trinomial earlier that was 4x squared plus, I'm making this up, but plus 2x minus 16 equals 0. We had to factor that, okay? But this only works with polynomials that do not have the single x term. It has an x squared, but no single x. So that's what I mean. This works only for polynomials without a single x. Okay? So let me show you what that kind of looks like. Here's our example. X squared minus 49 equals 0. We're going to solve this quadratic using square roots. And we'll show you how that looks and how that works. The way I'm going to do that is first, if I have minus 49, I'm going to add 49 to both sides. Previously, when I was factoring, I was setting it equal to 0. I'm not doing that now. I'm going to add 49 to both sides. And I'll be left with x squared equals positive 49. Remember, when I solve equations, I'm trying to get x by itself. So what I'm going to do then is I need to get rid of the square of x squared. The way I undo the process of squaring something is to take the square root. So if I take the square root of x squared, I'm just left with x. And I can do that over here as well with one stipulation. I have to write that as plus or minus. And I'll explain that a little more thoroughly. The square root of 49 is 7, the principal square root. That's what this little square root sign means. It means the principal square root. But if I say x squared, x could have been a negative 7 as well. Because a negative 7 times another negative 7 is positive 49. See, there are two answers there. We know that 7 times 7 is 49, but a negative 7 times another negative 7 is also 49. So I have to include both possibilities. So when I go back to the handout, then I'll need to put here that it could have been a positive or negative answer. And along my toolbar here for my equation editor, I'll see the plus or minus, and I'll type the number 7. So x is equal to a positive 7, or it could have been equal to a negative 7. There's two answers there, and I kind of write that compactly by saying plus or minus. That seems pretty easy. Well, I'm going to work some of the problems in this handout, and then I'm going to let you do the others, okay? So I'll number it in the same way as in the handout, so you just need to pay real close attention to the way that I number these. All right, so the first one we'll start with is, let's look at number 1. So write that down in your notes. Number 1 here is x squared minus 16 equals 0. What's my first step? Yep. Add 16 to both sides. Perfect. Those will cancel. I'll be left with x squared equals positive 16. Next step is to take the square root of both sides. Remember, it'll be plus or minus. The square root of x squared is just x. What's the square root of 16? Plus or minus 4. Remember, 4 times 4 is 16. So the square root of 16, that number we want is 4, because 4 times a positive 4 is 16, or negative 4 times a negative 4 is 16. Look at number 3. X squared plus 25 equals 0. What's my first step? Okay, so we'll subtract 25 from both sides. And I'll get x squared equals negative 25, because 0 minus 25 is negative 25. Take the square root of both sides. Be plus or minus the square root of negative 25. Now, I'm not going to ask you what the square root of negative 25 is because I want you to see something right here. I'm going to take my ancient calculator, and on my ancient calculator here, I've got a little square root sign. All right, so I'm going to put 25 in there. Remember, it's negative 25, right? Put negative 25, I'm going to find the square root of that. What do you think it is, by the way? Somebody tell me. What?
5.
You think 5, okay? Watch what happens. What's wrong? Kind of, in a way. You're thinking in the right direction. Let's remember what this means. I mean, looking inside the radical sign, there's a negative 25 right there, okay? Now, remember what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the same number times the same number. Now, when I say same number, I mean it's sign, positive or negative. I mean, every part about it is exactly the same when I square it. So what I want to know is what number times the exact same number gives me a negative 25. Well, we know that negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25, right? Do what? Okay, but it's got to be exactly the same. You're right. The only way you can get a negative answer when you multiply is for one to be negative and the other to be positive. But if I'm squaring something, if I want to find its square root, they've got to be the same, right? They've got to both be positive, both be negative. So here's my answer to this one. It is a no solution. You have to type that in. Just the words no solution. It can't be solved because of the negative sign underneath the radical symbol. You can't find a negative square root. Actually, you can. But that's a topic for Algebra 2. You'll get your junior year. We'll not talk about that here. So it's a secret, I'll tell you in Algebra 2. Let's look at number 5. X squared minus 5 equals a negative 4. All right, so I know the drill. Add 5. Add 5. These cancel. X squared is equal to negative 4 plus 5 is 1. I'll take the square root of both sides. The positive or negative square root of 1 is 1, so my answer is x is equal to plus or minus 1. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Look at number 7. So far, we've taken the same procedure. I hope you're writing this down. We've done the same procedure each time. We've had to add or subtract. So let's look at 7. 7's actually a little different. 7 is negative 2x squared equals negative 98. Now, my first step here is not to add or subtract. What is it I do? Yeah, why? Yeah, it's negative 2 times x squared. The opposite of times is to divide. So write that down. Okay, just a minor difference, nothing major. Those cancel. I'm left with x squared is equal to a negative 98 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 49. I'll take the square root of both sides. Don't forget to write plus or minus. And the square root of x squared is just x. The square root of 49 is 7, so it's plus or minus 7. Yeah. So let's look at one more example, number 9. Now, number 9 is going to pull everything together just a little bit. It's 3x squared minus 108. That equals 0, okay? So again, it fits what I'm looking for. I don't have just a single term of x. I've got an x squared, I've got a constant, but no single x term. So I can solve it using square roots. Of course, everything in this assignment will be that way because we picked those kind of problems on purpose. My first step is subtract 108, so I have to add 108 to both sides. Those will cancel. I'll be left with 3x squared equals 108. Need to take 108 and now divide it by 3. Those will cancel. I'll be left with x squared equals 36. All right, so take square root of both sides. Don't forget, when I do that, it'll be a positive and negative answer. X will be equal to then plus or minus 6. And that's my answer. So all I have to do is make sure it fits the form that has an x squared term and a constant without a single x. And if it does that, I likely can solve it by finding square roots. What I'd like for you to do is try problems 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10.